Welcome to the Founding Voices podcast, a series of conversations with humans who showed up before there was a map. I'm Perry, the founder of the Octopus Movement, and I believe nonlinear thinking is not just a way of solving problems, but it's a way of being in the world. Each week, I speak with three founding members from our global human mycelium to explore who they are, why they think differently, and how they shape a future that can't be built in straight lines. Well, let's meet today's guest, Jeroen. Jeroen Frumau is someone who doesn't just work in design, leadership, and creativity. He designs the conditions in which humans can actually thrive together. Wow, Jeroen. How about that? Do I say Jeroen or Jeroen?
My mother called me Jeroen, so let's try the Dutch pronunciation today, Perry.
Let's do the Dutch pronunciation. Jeroen, welcome to this podcast. I'm so
Thank
happy
you,
you're
Perry.
here. As a founding member of the Octopus Movement, a dear friend. We have spent quite some time together. We've traveled together, and I'm so happy you're here. Um, first things first. The first question: um, How do you see the octopus inside of you? What makes you to see the octopus in you?
It's a very good question because you asked me that question already before, I think a year ago, 2 years ago, when we met for the first time, let's say in different settings. And to some notion, I believe I'm not an octopus. Everybody says I'm very analytical and I'm very straightforward and very rationalized in that sense. So it's probably a very difficult question for me to answer. But what I do enjoy a lot and what I see happening around me now is that I really love working with non-linear people. I love the world of creativity. I try to structure it where possible. I try to create conditions for people to thrive in their own creativity. And that means that sometimes I need to transfer to their world and I need to let go my very linear thinking and my analytical approach. And I have to say, when I force myself to do that, I see new perspectives. I discover new perspectives. It's like um, unlocking a new level of curiosity in yourself. And I think that's probably the octopus in me, that maybe sometimes in a very rational and structured way, trying to unlock my own curiosity and new
Mhm.
curiosity so that I discover people in new ways, that I discover situations in new ways. And I try to also embrace those new situations for myself and for others to benefit from.
How octopus like, Jeroen?
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Hmm.
Just the label of the octopus was very odd to me when you said, but you're kind of an octopus, Jeroen, as well, the first time we met in that sense.
Yeah. It was interesting to see how that developed because the very first time I met you, I would never have guessed. Well, that's maybe not true. I think I've always seen you as a nonlinear thinker. And I think when you explain it this way, what I see very strongly with you is your adaptability to see the possibilities of enabling others to do awesome work. And that's as nonlinear as you can go, of course, because we
It's
had
it's
we
it's
yeah.
interesting that you say that, enabling others. A couple of years ago, when I was thinking about what am I really good at,
Mhm.
without really trying to answer it, let's say for resume purposes or something, but really think, what do I enjoy a lot, and what have I done a lot that I really enjoy? I realized that from day one, when I stepped out of university into the professional world and trying to exercise my skill sets and my passion, I've always been enabling leaders in organizations.
Yeah.
I've never worked lower than below leadership on one hand.
Mhm.
On the
Mhm.
other hand, I always felt that I could help them to thrive and to succeed in their leadership roles. And I really loved it to create the conditions around it,
Mhm.
whether it was in the beginning helping to develop systems and tools from a quality management point of view, later around performance management, how do you run an organization and how do you direct that, to setting up global operational systems for company leaders in the creative industry. so that they could focus on what they want to be thriving in, and that is showing creative exercise, creative excellence,
Hmm.
and having the ability around it to do that with teams around them and in a commercial context. And I love that. And
Yeah.
that meant I needed to continuously adapt and show curiosity to their realities, to their world. And then to enable them to be successful is, for me, the biggest accomplishments that I can create. And I love doing that.
Is there a difference in how, when you look at teams, whether it's collaboration or co-creation, is there a difference for you?
I think collaboration is happening at the moment that 2 or 3 people or more trying to embrace a challenge together.
Hmm.
Um, I think co-creation is happening when you really create something new together, and that's something else. Let's say real exploring a problem or a business challenge together, or creating conditions together to move forward and to create progress is maybe collaboration, but co-creation means really from a shared understanding that there is something that needs to be solved or that needs a resolution, maximizing the creativity of different professionals in different kinds, creating something new, and each taking in their a perspective of letting go, and then let's say trying to find a solution is something different, and it's, I think, even more challenging. I do believe that not all co-creators are best collaborators, and I don't believe that all collaborators are good co-creators in that sense.
Here. Yeah. Have you
Yeah.
ever? So, how do I ask this? You're creative yourself, but your focus is really in um, enabling creativity with others. Have you ever been in a situation where there was a very creative process and the master creator, the creative person that was in charge of the creativity, and you were there facilitating and helping that to co-create and create something beautiful? Have you ever been to the situation where you're like, I wish I was that creative person right now, because in my mind, I would create something else. Meaning, how does your creative thinking works when you see another creative person in action?
There's something comes to mind that I want to maybe share as an anecdotal experience in a second. But I've I've been trained as a mechanical engineer. So I went to university, got my master in science in mechanical engineering, and I thought, I'm not a real engineer.
No.
Let's say the technological challenges that were put on the table, I never felt that I could bring that ingenuity on the table to say, I'm taking here really that engineering perspective and I come with a technological solution. But I understood the process
Mhm.
that was happening there, and where others that were much brighter maybe than I was understood the physics and the mechanics behind certain elements much better than me could act in. When I started my career in the creative industry, because I can say now that I was very fortunate that day one of my career was in the creative industry until now, and we're
Mhm.
talking almost about 30 years later. Um, I never felt a designer in the way maybe a designer feels a designer. I never tried to be a designer and trying to bring my creative ideas for the challenge that was at the table at that moment to that. But I always tried to design conditions
Mhm.
where those people could thrive. And in the beginning of my career, that was much more difficult because you think with an engineering mindset, I'm saying that as an anecdotal experience, with an engineering mindset, I can help you to design the process and the steps to take, and I'll make it a rational approach and things
Yeah.
like that.
And that doesn't always work with creative
And it
minds,
doesn't
right?
always work. And that's
No.
where the anecdote comes in. I remember I was probably 25 or 26, 2 or 3 years in my career. And I was responsible for ISO certification in the organization where I was working at that moment. And I had to audit my creative colleagues to actually identify whether they were following the creative process that we had agreed to. And I still remember to today, and I still respect that individual very much. He said, in his own honest way, Jeroen, fuck off. He said, don't even try to control how I work. Why would I report to you and tell you how I've done my job, which I already do for 30 years, by the way. I'm now 30 years in my career. This individual is 30 years in a career.
Yeah.
And with my eagerness of thinking that the system that we had designed, the processes that we had defined, and the forms that associated to that, and I wanted to see the evidence of it, that was the right approach of designing. So I became very humble after that moment by listening and observing a lot the creatives around me. I think after 20 years in that organization, I think I understood very well how design and creativity can impact innovation, transformation, and
Hmm.
such. And I've always been modest. I think trying to be modest in that field of enabling others is very important. Being curious is important, and wanting to know everything and understand why and why, that's very important, but not trying to take over. And I know what I'm good at, but I also know where to stay away from. Even up to today, in the role that I take today, don't try to step in the role of a creative. Let the creative really thrive in what he is good at, and let me only rationalize it. Let me help to position it. Let me create
So,
strategies for it.
so did you move from a linear perspective in supporting design and creativity into more a non-linear being? And of course, this is my language, and I love to use that. But in my perspective, it makes things so clear that um, how, when you think about your nonlinear thinking, um, okay, are you considering now that you're using nonlinear thinking and linear thinking, or are you seeing yourself as a nonlinear being and using everything?
I think it's for me, it's a blended reality. I think I do both. At the
Yeah.
moment, I need to be linear. I can be linear, and I want to be linear because that's what the context then at that moment needs. For instance, in developing a strategy or creating a solution for a problem that we're working on in the organization I'm now. On the other hand, I think I know when to use nonlinear thinking or engage with nonlinear thinkers in making a next step in that process. I think
Okay,
it's
I have a question immediately about this because
going.
some of the linear thinkers, um, have huge difficulty as soon as they're in contact with non-linear thinkers. What's the difference for you? Because you understand both sides. What do you think goes wrong with a very linear thinker that comes in contact with a non-linear thinker that means well, that also wants to achieve the same goals as the linear thinker, etc.? What do you think is the clash?
Um, Let me try to describe that from my own personal perspective.
Hmm.
Um, I think that when you engage in a very linear way with non-linear thinkers, that you're trying to want to see progress. You want to see rational steps. A falls after B, C after B, etc. Like that, and you work on that. If that's your expectation in engaging with a non-linear thinker, then you will be derailed after two steps already. And you
Hmm.
get nervous, you get impatient, you start asking linear questions, and it will only create more clashes with the
Hmm.
other side of the table or in the process.
Hmm.
I think the art, and I'm practicing, I'm not mastering it yet. I think the art of engaging with nonlinear thinkers and of different kinds, very bright
Hmm.
and intellectual people, but you can even think about individuals that maybe have, let's say, are on the spectrum in a different way and therefore are nonlinear in that sense, is to allow it to happen and to think more in circles. And you might be wanting to be able to come back on something you started with half an hour ago, only in different wordings, with different perspectives. So I think it's allowing that more circular thinking and seeing it more as an ongoing process of new inspirations that come to the table. And I think it needs to be the strength of the linear thinker is to capture all those ingredients and make something rational out of it that serves him or her in his linear world.
And let's face it, Jeroen, you're a master of this. You just said in the beginning of your answer, well, I'm not a master, but you are. This is You are a master at this. And what is interesting is that you just described the way of working, dealing with a nonlinear mind in a very linear way. And that proves, your answer itself proves that you're a master in this, because you're able to reflect, analyze, bring it together, and share it in a way that is understandable for most people.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
not a lot of people can
thank
do that.
thank you for that compliment, and maybe for the realization on my side that it's there. It's not always easy. I remember.
Hey, I never said it is.
I remember that we did a workshop with some of your community members. I think almost 2 years ago, uh, where even you walked almost away from that workshop and said, "This is not working for me."
That workshop changed my life, Jeroen, and I've said that to you before. It
Yeah.
changed the way I see some things and the way we do our think tanks now. It's because of you.
And that's amazing to hear. But you can imagine the, let's say, the hesitation it created on my side at that moment, because I was convinced that with that workshop format we could unlock the creativity and the linear thinking ways of the non-linear world. And I still believe we did things wrong there, but that's because out of ignorance. At that moment, I was learning as well how to deal with non-linear thinkers. And I'm still, you say I'm a master in it, and I really appreciate your compliments and your labeling of that. But I felt so immature at that moment that I thought I need to walk away from the octopus movement because I can't create any relevance over there. But I think what that workshop tried to do as well, and if I think about how I work, is let it happen. Let the perspectives, let the qualities of the various individuals, whether they are on spectrum A or on spectrum B, it doesn't matter. Let the qualities all happen there in that melting pot of conversations. And we did not have enough time in that workshop specifically to turn it around and say, what have we learned? Because there were lots of emotions in that workshop. But for the best, this was the best learning opportunity for me in that transition process that you described so much. Are you in transition from a linear thinker to a non-linear thinker? Or is it something you use it as an instrument? And I'm looking for instruments around myself to understand these different worlds. And
You know,
this is
Jeroen, why it was the best workshop ever? The workshop annoyed the hell out of me, but I felt safe to share that it annoyed me, and I was safe to share what was happening, and therefore it was the best workshop ever.
yeah. Well, thank you for reflecting on that.
And I think someone gave the workshop, and I in the end I gave her a really hard time, and I feel sorry for that. But I hope she knows that she did something so profound and so well, again, because our think tanks in today's world of the octopus movement is based on your workshop and what we've learned there, and
Well,
it was amazing.
that's great to hear. Something else that came to mind in terms of my octopus mind, if you want to say it like that. Maybe come back to your first questions in this conversation. Um, the way I'm also looking at professionals is that I'm trying to identify what drives them, the qualities that they have. And over the course of my career, and definitely the last 10, 15 years, when I left the corporate world and started to focus more on enabling others
Yeah.
in their career as well, not just doing consultancy on the strategy level and business and design, but in the middle, we're always people. And professionally, I have a high level of curiosity about what creative professionals are, what drives them, what they want. And by doing that, you discover that there are many non-linear thinkers in that community. So I sometimes felt, and definitely if I now reflect back on the last 10, 12 years, when I focused with Talents for You on unlocking the potential of individuals in their career development, and you can look at it from a recruitment point of view and a job hunting point of view, etc. But in the end, what I try to do is discover the quality and the talent in individuals and see where could they put their tentacles in as a next step in their career. And I sometimes felt as being in a pot full of octopi not knowing where to do. And sometimes one jumped out, and I helped the jumping out in a direction where they could use their creativity as well. So thinking about the octopus and me, I'm not saying I want to train octopi in the world, but having lots of them around me in the creative world, understanding how they think, and some totally not understanding how they think, but understanding that, let's say, allowed me to also help them in the next steps in their career, or land in an environment where they could further explore their professional and creative curiosity of
So,
creating.
so in a linear way, you are able to enable the octopus. And I think that's a good
I
phrase.
hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
I know, and I know that I can say that I'm quite of an expert in this. This is the case, and especially when we hold on to this. I know you've done a lot with the youth and creative economies, and how in enabling the octopus, how would you, how can we bring this to education? Because I know you have an opinion about that as well.
You know what it is, Perry? I sometimes feel that that opinion is based on only experiences that I've had in working with youth, with talent, with young professionals,
Mhm.
and it's not based on anything else like that. But what I do believe is that the educational system, I'm generalizing here, the educational system is still compartmentalizing individuals in knowledge areas. So, and I think that if we talk about innovating the educational system so that anybody, not just octopi, but anybody uh, can thrive in their life, in their career, I think the educational system needs to be designed more about passions and interests. And they can still be in professional areas, the world
Mhm.
of design, the world of IT, the world of finance. That's all possible. But I think we need to redesign educational systems at large in much more unlocking the skill sets and the talents than transferring knowledge. The transferring of knowledge is important, but we forget to unlock the skill sets in the educational systems. And I've seen that with my children when they were, let's say, in primary and secondary education, that they had that opportunity in that school environment to do that already a little bit more than in other traditional educational systems. I saw it with my own eyes when, during the COVID period, uh, out of a passion project, I organized a virtual summer camp for children, teenagers between 12 and 18 years old,
Mhm.
that were very used to be in a very traditional educational system. But in the COVID period, during the summer holidays, there was nothing else to do. So let's do a project together.
Mhm.
And I invited them in that project environment. And what nobody knows here in the call yet, but I'm currently in Saudi Arabia. And in the last 2 years, we developed, with the organization I'm working here now, we developed a youth creativity program for one of our clients. And we brought that to life. And we had over 2,000 children participate in 2 years' time in that whole program. And what I've learned from that is, if you only create the condition for young individuals to show their creativity or their innovativeness, uh, they can show so much more and learn so much more in a very short period of time that drives that passion forward.
Yeah.
Because in the end, um, if you have a career ahead of you, why not have a career or a life ahead of you where you can do things that you're passionate about? And I think that passion needs to be unlocked and much more addressed in the educational systems than knowledge and skills. I say you can train those, but they're only a starting point.
And in today's world, Jeroen, with the development of I think we're going into this direction a little bit easier than
True,
we would be. I
true.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think here, if you then talk about enabling the nonlinear thinkers
Hmm.
in this society or in societies around the world, I think what we all share, linear and nonlinear, are the passions we can activate. And
Yep.
if we organize more the world, or let's say learning around activating passions and therefore talents, then these talents will serve us much easier. I think nonlinear people and linear people can work better together. If we talk about, let's say, the collaboration topic that you addressed earlier, and we can start innovating together, and we can hopefully solve some very complex problems together, benefiting the linear side and the non-linear side, because we're driven by the same type of motivators in our professional field. So
And
yeah,
like with the project we did together, another project, but the oh, I can't find the word. Anyway, I was annoyed and it didn't go well, but in the end, it went very well because we were able to say what needed to be said. And I think by enabling all the possibilities within creativity, you enable the possibilities to share everything that needs to be shared in a safe space. And that's, of course, when you just focus on delivery and skills, that is more difficult. So I think what happened there is a very good example in how this might work so
and
much better.
I think going back to education, I think if in call it development, the development of creativity, innovation, etc., that industry, if you can create safe spaces for young people, let's focus now only on young people.
Mhm.
If you can create safe space for young people to show their innovativeness, to show their creativity, then they can become confident in a new way. And that means when they step in the real world, as we call it, the world of where you need to create an income for yourself, where you expected to deliver outcomes and things like that. If you already have that confidence that you can show your creativity, that you can show even your vulnerability in your professional side, then I think we can really thrive into the future. And I think education needs to focus more on that.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, final question. Time flies when having fun, Jeroen. Imagine everybody is watching this. YouTube decides to put it all over the world, and everybody gets this video from us having this conversation. What kind of message or invitation would you leave to all the fellow linear and non-linear thinkers out there? So everyone, what is a message you or invitation you would love to give? And purposely, I don't ask this in advance, so you're not prepared for this question. But what pops up in mind right now?
What pops up in my mind is that be curious at all levels. Let's say, try to avoid being biased. Of course, bias is being professional bias, personal bias, cultural bias, whatever you want to
Whatever
call it.
bias, right?
Whatever bias you have is created by, I think, um, stopping your ongoing curiosity. Of course, bias is created by curiosity because you're asking yourself questions and you get input and things like that. But if you stop being curious, then your bias is going to be amplified. And let's say your open-mindedness and your creativity and your innovativeness is being diminished by that. So I would welcome everybody in all forms to maximize your curiosity. Always ask why, how, who, where. Listen very carefully. Listen more than talk. I like to talk a lot, and I'm always being reminded of that. But I'm trying to listen even more because I think through listening, you get insights, not answers. You get insights, and I think if you can help to translate those in my world, the conditions for others to succeed,
Mhm.
then hopefully you can fulfill on your purpose in life, on your ambitions in life, and actually maybe be appreciated in life as well in a different way than only by showing your bias.
So, Jeroen, who's the enabler of the octopus in ourselves, best advice is to be curious. Be
Be curious.
curious. Oh, always. Especially, I see this. Be curious when you don't want to be curious. That's the sign to be curious. It's easy to be curious when you want to be curious. It's not about that. It's about when you're least curious, you need to start up your curiosity level because
Yeah,
then it's really necessary.
yeah. Which in
Thank you,
itself,
Jeroen.
is not easy.
Which is very difficult, but that makes life very interesting to do things that are flipping difficult. Thank you for being here, Jeroen. not just in this podcast, but also in our movement as a founding member. If you're listening and you feel a spark, follow it, please. Be curious, release that octopus in you. Nonlinear thinking is not a strategy, it's a kind of love, in my opinion, and it grows wherever we share it. Thank you so much for this conversation, Jeroen. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And greetings to someone very close to you there.
I'll transfer them.
Thank you, Jeroen.
Okay, bye, Perry.